All right. What's up? What's up? We're live. All right. There we go. Camera. All right. How are we doing today? This is episode number 32 in the Hybrid Athlete podcast here in a wonderful May 10th, Saturday of 2025. Coming to you from Colorado, Northern Colorado. Happy to go over some good stuff today. So basically going to get into, I did a year in review podcast about 2 months ago or so. So basically just kind of looking at the start of 2025 and, full view of 2024. And for those of you who don't follow my content or don't know me yet, I'm basically like a kind of endurance / hybrid athlete converted into like hyper focused on bodybuilding right now, just pretty much weightlifting, high intense CrossFit style, high intense cardio mixed with like some, maybe I do like, 3 to 4 mile run every now and then. But for the most part, I'm just sticking to like, good weightlifting, hypertrophy weightlifting training, in my early 30s. So I'm not too old yet, but I've made some good progress. And basically this episode is going to be a good one for me to basically share with you, everyone who is interested, kind of like what type of specific role strategizing by 2 to 4 week phases and like gauging 2 to 4 week progress, so to speak. So it's kind of a vague, kind of a gray area. Just a brief history of what I've gone over so far in this podcast. I've gone over maybe like some diet stuff. I've gone over like my diet, which is like a paleo diet, kind of mixing carbs, obviously mixing the macros. There's plenty of sources. I've gone over that so far on this channel. I've gone over goal setting. I've gone over micromanaging goals, midterm goals. So this topic is similar to that, but it is different in many ways. I've gone over like my personal progress, like my success in endurance, like my transition, like going 80% weights, 20% cardio to 20% cardio, 80% weights, and kind of like, on a sliding scale of being an endurance guy and then also wanting to lift weights. But that's kind of all in the past. That's historical. I'm going to dig into more of like, I've gone over the mental kind of, things of being consistent, of kind of challenging yourself to like, obviously this is another kind of common theme across all, podcasters or people who talk about fitness online, of getting past that complacency, kind of being, stagnant or just like being satisfied with just showing up. I think episode 29 or 30, this last couple of months there was one about that. So that's all been covered. This episode is more about like the nitty gritty of like what type of conversations you need to have with yourself on a daily basis. And then again, a lot of this is personal experience. I'm going to share a few snapshots of some articles and stuff that I've come across just in my daily life, and maybe some posts of other media. I might just, share a snapshot of some social media posts from other, high profile, fitness influencers and stuff, and maybe just share with you kind of like what the day-to-day internal dialogue should be from my perspective, in my view, of somebody who, I'll just start off too by saying in this conversation that like fitness has changed my life. I have a very, very deep kind of intertwined connection with fitness, health, relationships, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my son, my relationship with people at work. Fitness is like spilled into all of that. So that's where I want to get into kind of more of like the psychological dialogue, just the day-to-day of, I've gone over like how to fix problems. I've gone over like how to set priorities of which body group do I do? How do I lift? How do I change exercises to get more progress? That's all been covered. But this one is more about kind of like me like spilling kind of deeper into like how I view myself, how I perceive myself, how fitness has changed how I perceive myself, how I continue to try to improve my realistic view of myself, and how I day to day, 24 hours a day, pretty much am internally saying, make sure you're doing something to become better. Make sure that you are, if you're not in the gym, make sure that you are thinking about the right things, make sure that you have good habits at work, make sure you have good habits with your family, make sure you're not focused so much on fitness that other things fall apart, vice versa. Make sure that you make enough time if you're really serious about getting in the best shape of your life. If you're serious about using fitness as a ticket to not have health costs for the rest of your life, that's a huge piece of it too. There needs to be internal dialogue that everyone has to where they consistently know why they're straining themselves, why they're not eating what everyone else is eating sometimes, why they're waking up at 4 a.m. to go to the gym, why are they suffering through an endurance race, why are they doing this? So obviously the why is always like every motivational book will have that. It's fine. Discover your why. That's great. Okay, everyone who's watching this probably already has their why. I want to talk more about like what types of it can be self-hype, it can be like the internal dialogue and kind of like the daily regimen or the daily changes in your regimen to where you gain an advantage on yourself. A lot of times it's you versus you. I watched an interesting interview with Barry Bonds yesterday where he was basically talking to some NBA superstars, and he obviously didn't play in the NBA, but he was basically giving them the spiel on like, I had tunnel vision on the pitcher. I was never worried about any position players. I didn't care if I lined out to the second baseman. Every at bat was, all I need to do is win this one-on-one battle. It's not you versus 9 players in the field. It's you versus the pitcher. And then he had this like crazy mindset of, it doesn't matter how fast you're pitching the ball. All I'm doing is changing the object. I'm changing the object from a glove like a catcher. Think about how easy it is for a catcher to catch a 98, 100-mile-an-hour fastball if they're a good pro catcher. Every time, just catch it and throw it. They don't even think about it. Barry Bonds' mentality was change that object from a glove to a bat, and hitting a 100-mile-an-hour fastball is easy. There's so many quotes. I might post one here of like Trevor Hoffman, one of the greatest closers of all time, basically said the most dangerous hitter in history is Barry Bonds. People think he's the GOAT of baseball. I can definitely see how that's a valid statement. So, that's like an example of kind of, you want to have like a unique perspective that's niche, that's specific to you, that goes beyond all the noise that comes from social media. That's, you can see someone, lifting, bench pressing 550 pounds or whatever, and you can get motivated and be like, God damn, that's cool. You can watch David Goggins and you can think, holy shit, like he doesn't stop. This guy's crazy. But your daily life in reality looks different than what a lot of things that you're seeing on social media or online that you're getting motivated about. Your daily life, if you can put a camera on like your life, your daily life, and maybe like and this is one thing I do, is I always consider like, what if there was like just a camera watching me all the time, and I was like maybe 10, 15, 30 minutes after the moments I was watching myself and like reflecting on what I did. Like, say for example, I'm driving and then I stop in my car, and before I'd come into my house, I'm like scrolling through social media, like mindlessly scrolling, or like on Facebook, or like just like looking up an article, or like looking at something that's like not productive for me. Or maybe I'm just like, wasting time at work, like not fully engaged in my work, or like listening to music or something, or like kind of fucking around. Like it's never like that much. It's always like little here, little there type thing. But imagine if there was like a camera on you at the gym, or like basically through your whole day, and like that type of like, and slightly delayed like reflection. Let me go back an hour and do this differently. That's like kind of how I live in real time. I try to like synchronize myself and just think, okay, like how would you change the last 10 minutes? We'll do it this next 10 minutes. And it's almost like kind of it's like a specific mindset, I think, for fitness, to where you're thinking, okay, like you're hyped up about this workout, and you spend like a lot of your day, if people are like me, you spend like your morning, if you're going to work out in the afternoon, it's different than if you work out right away at 4:35, 5:30 in the morning, really early, like some people do. But if you're like working out in the afternoon, you always like spend your day kind of that lead up of like, I'm going to work hard so that I can reward myself with this workout. That's the internal dialogue I'm talking about. I'm thinking, create internal mental advantages to where the difficult stuff becomes your advantage, to where like you either thrive in it, or you like embrace the difficulty. So that's like what I'm talking about in terms of creating an environment in your own mind to where you have an advantage over 95% of the population. If you're on the outside looking in, you view people that are very successful, people that are in really, really good shape, like bodybuilders, or someone who's like, wow, like how did they get there? And it's always something that they always say the same thing. Like, oh, it's consistent. Don't miss a day, check all your boxes, whatever. Yes, that's in place. But what I've discovered, the older I get, the more advanced I get in working out, and like really trying to dig in and get better and better. If I'm trying to like keep very lean body fat percentage and also get stronger at my bench press or my lifts, it needs to be kind of like something to where I can trigger myself to like get into a mindset of, all right, like I'm doing this, but also like I'm not taking just doing it as the solution or as the answer. You want to put a personal twist on what you're doing, whether it's at work, whether it's and that's the thing about it. We're talking about this podcast specifically, is more like work-life balance type thing, or almost like your entire philosophy, your entire who you are as a person type discussion, to where you want to have a personal twist so that people remember you, they don't forget you, and they notice something different about you. That applies to, that basically applies to how you start a conversation, how you end a conversation, the type of impression you make, first impression. Like if you're focused on making a good first impression, and then you focused on like saying a particular phrase, maybe to people who you work with or who you're around, those types of things, if done the right way, can really generate a positive positive feedback loop. I'm digging more into that type of application with my fitness. I'm digging into finding a way to make sure that on my leg day, I am caffeinated up, I am well rested, hydrated, and I am ready to kill it. And I'm ready to like kind of I have like this kind of like, for me, it's almost like a chip on my shoulder. Like, oh, when I was doing these marathons, I could barely bench squat 275 pounds, like two or three times. Now I'm like repping out and I'm going deep, go past parallel, rep it out. I have like that internal dialogue of, this is 5 times how many reps you could do 13, a year ago or 13 months or whatever. And then I just have like that feedback loop of like, yeah, you're killing it. You're killing it. And then it's like, it's a comparison against myself, but it's also like it's almost like like you just start getting into a rhythm of like, yes, positive, positive, positive. But it's not always just like it's not like to yourself, but it's just like finding these little tricks to like have the internal dialogue of like, don't back off, don't let down. It's compare yourself to other people is fine, but like comparing yourself to yourself historically and then moving forward and like self-reflecting on when you were when you didn't have this habit, and then take pride in the fact that you have a new habit. I used to have an issue with waking up at 5:15 or 5 a.m. every day of the week. I used to like go to the gym early 2 days a week, but then the other day I woke up at 6 a.m. Now I'm waking up at like 5:05, 5:10 every day of the week, except for Sundays sometimes. But that's basically like an internal win for me. And I'm like thinking, okay, I start a little bit like I have 40 minutes extra every day. And then I kind of keep that like rolling, kind of that rolling motivation, that rolling positive thought process, energy going into make the next hour good. Okay, now I'm already ahead. Let me keep going ahead. Let me go fill up my tank of gas early. Let me do some housework early. Let me get into like, whatever my studying early. Let me add like an activity with my son, with my wife, whoever. Let me add in certain things that will like give a spark to my day. And then I think what I've discovered the last couple of months specifically is when I'm in a good rhythm like that, then I start to like carry over that spark into my workout. I'm thinking, you know what, for 2 straight weeks, I've done, I've kind of stopped here where maybe I had a couple of reps left, rep and reserve. I think that's some weak ass bullshit if people do that, by the way, but that's a whole other conversation. But basically, it's just almost like that little that extra spark that just gets you like 10-15% more on a couple of exercises, or maybe a warm up. You're like, let me do a slightly more intense warm up because you're coming into the gym with more energy, and that snowballs into like, you know what, like for back today, I'm going to do barbell rows, but I'm going to add some weight, or I'm going to maybe add a set or something, or then I'm going to go. I usually go into like dumbbell flies or something, like reverse dumbbell flies, or like, one arm dumbbell rows. I'm going to stay heavy and I'm going to go into like a seated camel row. I've basically like had some momentum going after my weak body parts, because that's in the motivating factor in me. I just had the example with legs, like, I'm lifting tons more than what I did when I just finished a marathon type thing. So like that type of, this is the last thing I'll leave it with, is that's like a setup. The setup for like that improved execution is basically like cultivated through your morning. And none of this is new. It's just kind of like a refined version of what you've all already heard. But it's like a setup. It's the ultimate setup of like, once you hit the ground running, like there's no doubt that you're going to hit the ground running no matter how you feel. I've had days where I've started out, and this is I think an improvement that I've made lately is I've had days where I've started out feeling a little bit weak, a little bit tired. And then sometimes that kind of like nauseous, just, I don't know how the day is going to go. It goes away quickly when I kind of just like keep in mind the fact that like, okay, I've broken through this barrier a couple days lately, or maybe a couple times a week now. So then like my ability to overcome that that like complacency or just kind of that lag, that gray area in my day to where it's like not as productive, sitting there thinking about what to do as opposed to like continuously doing things, whether it's my job, whether it's with my son. Like I said, every facet of every area of my life, being quicker, more efficient. And then the setup, that's what I'm getting as like the setup for the workout, which ultimately is, 90, people say it's like, 80, 90% sleep and nutrition. That's great. But ultimately the workout, tearing down the muscle, is obviously what gets you to the ability and the right to have a nice recovery phase. I've been working out harder, like HIIT cardio. So I've been kind of still like keeping my weight up. I'm at 203, 204 right now, still pretty lean body mass. And then I've like almost increased the intensity on HIIT cardio, like assault bike intervals, of jump roping, of boxing, of like really good cardio to keep me lean, to keep me strong, to keep me like agile, but also just to like continue my strength and like keep making gains, obviously in legs and back. Those are my focus. So like my point, and again, like that's another example of the snowball effect of like, well, the setup for that HIIT cardio day is like listen to the right music, talk to yourself internally. Maybe you had a good day at work, and then maybe saying, oh yeah, see how good you did at work. Like now you're going to do that good in the gym, even though you didn't feel good this morning. So it's kind of like, it's kind of just like it's almost like a meshing of like fitness more with other areas of your life. You can have like most people, say, God, family, fitness, finance, the 4 F's or whatever. There's plenty of people that kind of view their life that way in a healthy manner. So it's a similar way of like mesh those more. Don't consider it like, oh, my gym time, my family time. Consider it like my healthy activity time lasts 18 hours, 17 hours a day, and I sleep 7 hours. That's how I view it. Like I split my 17-hour waking day into like 2 or 3 parts, like intense work, intense working out, and then like intense, shower, dress, take care of my son, all that stuff. That's intense too. It doesn't slow down. It doesn't stop. My intensity doesn't stop just because I left the gym. And then when I do that, I always have like a kind of I'm hungry. I'm always hungry, literally and metaphorically, for the next thing. So I think that's a good conversation that we can have today. And I hope this resonates with people. I hope it's just kind of like ultimately, I hope that people's takeaway is don't let the gym be the gym. Focus on integrating everything. Focus on the setup for like the internal dialogue starts early, it ends late. Focus on the setup of getting yourself in a position to where you can always execute, right? Not just showing up. We talked about that a couple episodes ago, but more of like, what type of tricks can you pull on yourself in a positive way to where you just feel like, yes, I have more momentum, I have more strength. Even though I didn't feel good this morning, I have more strength going into it. Even though I'm competing with other people that are maybe technically better than me, I feel more confident than I did last week, than last month, going into this against them or with them or whatever it may be, so that my execution has just improved. And it might manifest in the way of like a 3 to 5% increase over the course of an entire month. And you still may feel, I've been working. David Goggins hit on this once in one of his conversations that was pretty popular. He was just saying, just you can work out literally an entire month and hardly see any gains, anything that's significant. And then it's hard. It's like 80 to 90% of people are just like, well, the hell with this. I'm not doing it anymore. But it needs to be more of like, again, and this type of internal dialogue, this type of mentality will lead you into the healthy obsession phase of fitness and other things too in your life, of like, it doesn't matter how I feel. It's obviously like that type of mindset is so valuable when it's like, it doesn't matter how I feel, I'm literally doing it automatically. But then when you go from that's great, you do it automatically, to not only am I going to do it automatically, I'm going to automatically push myself at the right time and set myself up for faster incremental gains as I go along and on my journey. And then I'm going to reap the rewards of all areas of my life, because again, it's like integrated, and there's more integration and meshing of everything. So I really hope that hits home with people. And thank you for watching. And I'll try not to be, 2-3 weeks delayed in this next episode that comes out, episode 33, but episode 32, that's a wrap. So everyone have a good week. And looking forward to summer. Take care. Bye.